Menace. A person or thing that is likely to cause harm, a threat, or danger. This is the sort of game where you can kind of tell its whole vibe just from the name, because there is a whole lot of danger, and, if you like strategic tactical combat, a whole lot of fun to be found in Menace. If you've played Battle Brothers, you're probably already aware of the sort of brutality that waits in store, where your units can just be deleted out of nowhere, where you might have to watch an ally be pinned down and picked away, round after round after round as enemies continue to fire without a break because you happen to misposition them, and it's totally your fault, but you also feel like life's really unfair in that moment. But with low lows come high highs. For example, obliterating an enemy in a single shot, or making it through a mission with few to no casualties. This is especially challenging on higher difficulties, and at least for me, offers a sense of achievement that's not too different from beating that tough boss I've been struggling on for a couple hours in a Souls game. And so, today I'm going to go over my experiences with Menace in early access, by talking about the good, things I like, and things I think the game does well. The bad, things I dislike, and things that I would personally like to see changed by the end of early access. And the ugly. Just random stuff that doesn't really fit into either category, including a couple things that bug me and honestly aren't that big of a deal. Recently I tried this format out to give my thoughts on Neo 3, that went very well, and so I'm going to be making more good, bad, and ugly videos in the future. If that sounds like it's up your alley, do be sure to get subscribed. But for now, let's get into things. So first up, this is a tactics game, and its combat is absolutely brilliant. At first, it does feel a little bit unfair, because an enemy will just dome you out of nowhere. But the more you learn, the more you realize the enemy domes you out of nowhere, but you have exactly the same tools. You can enhance your unit's vision to allow them to see further, meaning you get to start doming enemies when they can't see you. P.S. Look for a little hidden eye symbol on your units. Similarly, different weapons have strengths and weaknesses. I personally am a big fan of a shotgun. It absolutely destroys stuff, but it's close range, meaning I need my squaddies to get close. Then there's the fact that you have infantry weapons that scale with a number of squaddies, and special weapons that don't. A rocket launcher is going to be a really powerful special weapon that will absolutely blow up a vehicle. But if you use it to shoot a bunch of dudes, congratulations, you've shot a single dude. Now there's a bunch of angry dudes -1 trying to kill you. And then there are laser weapons, some of which are very good at ignoring foes' armor, which is a good thing if you're trying to kill them, but is a bad thing if then your non-laser squaddie has to finish the job. All of these different trade-offs make the game continually engaging, especially as you go through a bunch of missions and kind of run out of story content, which is very much an early access problem, though I'll talk about that a bit more later. All this also means you are heavily encouraged to change up your loadout and not simply bring the same people with the same guns mission after mission. Though one piece of advice, get good armor early and stick to it because armor is really important, as is the cover system. This means hiding behind stuff, whether it's hiding behind some rocks, crouching down because you don't have anything to hide behind, hiding behind a nearby tank, or if you're these really dumb enemies trying to hide behind the enemy tank and getting shot in the face by my shotgun squad. Yeah, I don't know what those guys were thinking. Usually the AI is a little smarter than that. Now, in addition to all of this, the second layer is vehicles. These things are awesome. They're huge threats on the battlefield, and it is so viscerally satisfying to just hear the boom. Just like that, when one of your tanks fires a shell and absolutely annihilates an enemy. In fact, your vehicles can feel invulnerable, until an enemy hits them with an anti-tank rocket and disables it on the first shot. Early on, there's quite a bit of risk to using a vehicle as they are very expensive, and if it gets blown up, it's gone for good. But later, the Salvager OCI means you don't actually permanently lose them, though you probably don't want to use tanks to soak up anti-vehicle weapon hits. They are quite good at taking small arms fire and can basically make some very dangerous enemies, like flamethrower dudes, completely useless. But there's quite a bit of randomness in the game. And yes, randomness can be frustrating. There are times where I was quite frustrated. But on balance, and especially once I realized that it usually was me being bad rather than me getting unlucky, I think it does a good job of presenting randomness in ways that make it fun, reminding me of an ARPG because I got some sweet drops like a laser rifle, shotgun, a plasma rifle, all sorts of awesome tools, and I then got to apply them and see how effective they were against enemies. but it does mean that if I misposition one of my units, yeah, there's a good chance that unit's just dead. Similarly, occasionally enemies do get lucky shots. They take out a squad, they take out a vehicle. It kind of sucks. But then I remember that I also got quite a few lucky shots, and it doesn't seem too fair for me to complain about when the enemy gets a lucky shot, but then to celebrate the fact that 3 times out of 3, my tank landed its shot and just blew up an enemy vehicle. I should probably take the wins and also take the losses. And so, after playing for about 30 hours, I would say that Menace does a good job of using its randomness to make the game more fun. Okay, so that's a good bit of my thoughts on the combat. But what about the general game structure? Because a lot of the things you do outside of missions have a big impact on your success within the mission. For example, even selecting your operations has a big impact. Originally, this mission gave 3 options for starting operations, with some different goals and also different rewards. I ended up going for bridgeheads, where I get 10% supply points for the rest of the entire operation. Then there's things like deny resources. No choice here, but upon completion, the Menace presence is going to be permanently reduced. After that, I can choose again between 3 missions. Gain some manpower, particularly useful if I'm running low on squaddies. Gain a random local forces item, that could be pretty good. Or, construct units could lose vision and detection, which will make the final mission of the operation way easier. I can see enemies, they can't see me, I get to blast them. Similarly, the TCRN Impetus's loadout is quite important. At the front you have electronics. This gives you intelligence, which you can use to plan your missions. Next you have the armaments. These are powerful off-map abilities that can be used to delete enemies, or in the case of an auto laser, provide a handy distraction. Then you have your hull resources, which do things like repair stuff for you, hire new manpower, and even salvage enemies for more resources, which you can then take to the black market to buy all sorts of cool stuff. For example, I might want this. It's a hugely powerful anti-structure armor-piercing weapon, and it costs 200. So I can put in all this salvage, basically junk that I got, and okay, I'm way over. Would not actually want to accept you, but I could very easily buy it. On the other hand, if I wanted to buy a vehicle, it's going to be way pricier. I'm going to need to save up, or maybe sell all the other stuff that I have. On the other hand, maybe I'm short on manpower. Well, no problem. The black market can provide with the small recruitment effort. Early game, I bought this so much because I lost an embarrassing amount of squaddies. And then down at the very bottom are rare items. Sometimes you get awesome stuff here, but it is very expensive. Like the Elsa plasma rifle, this thing fucking rocks. Only problem is, at 880, it is super expensive, and I'm not sure I want to spend that much. Though I might pick up some adaptive camouflage for 100 now that I'm down here. All of these systems tie into your resources, shown up here. So first up, promotion points. You use these to promote your squad leaders, giving them all sorts of fun perks. For example, Sharpshooter, which decreases enemy cover bonuses. Someone's hiding? Yeah, doesn't really matter. Jane Darby's going to shoot right through him. On the other hand, Rawa here has Fury, gain 40% base damage, which is very good, especially when it's combined with Revel and Slaughter, where she actually gains accuracy and discipline for each enemy destroyed, which counteracts the accuracy penalty on Fury. You can also demote people, but that's generally not a good idea. It just sort of functions as a respec, and you lose a lot of the points by demoting people. Next up, there's Authority. When your authority is high, all of your units gain bonuses. When your authority is low, your units gain penalties. Except you also use authority to recruit new units, specifically pilots and squad leaders. So, like everything, this is a resource, and you're probably going to need to spend it. Then, there are the OCI components, used for a lot of events and also to purchase OCIs. Can't be done in a mission, though. Last but not least, squaddies. Yes, that's right, your manpower is a resource. Because, for example, if I wanted to not field the vehicle, so I don't send Rewa next mission, instead, I want to send, let's just say, Fedor. Well, I need to give him some squaddies to accompany him. If I don't have enough manpower, because all my squaddies died, then I can't do that. After you've done all that, well, then it's time to kit out your soldiers. This means getting a special weapon, a basic weapon, let's say a laser gun, pew pew and all that. Some armor. Armor is very important. And maybe even some accessories. Thing is, all of these things have a supply cost, and often the supply cost, at least for things like armor and base weapon, scales with squaddies. And so there's going to be times where you have to choose between a full squad of 8 and only sending a partial squad. I did this last mission. No, I did not suffer casualties here. I just sent Edwin Pike with 5 people because I mostly wanted him to use the rocket launcher. And unlike infantry weapons, the special weapons do not scale with your number of squaddies. This is just as good with 5 guys as it is with 8, whereas the corridor sweeper shotgun, way better with 8. So in terms of this more strategic layer of gameplay, a couple things I found. 1, rend ammo and smoke grenades, really strong. I use these on all my characters constantly. Second of all, don't underestimate armor. You will get wrecked. Third of all, the shotgun's actually very good, you just have to get close to use it. So maybe pair it with a long-range weapon like the Elsa. On someone like Tech, who does not have to crouch down to use heavier special weapons, the way most characters do, you could use something like this, a sniper rifle that's very effective. Oh, and once you have a vehicle, put a cannon on it, just make it a tank. Personally, I found a lot of my success within the mission came from the things I did before and the loadouts that I set up. So if I was really struggling and I ended up having to redo a mission, well, I'd make sure to change up my loadout to better counter the enemies. So now let me go over a few of the things that I found which bothered me while I was playing the early access. The first of which is tooltips, specifically tooltip clarity. Because here's the tooltip for a weapon when I'm equipping it to my squad leader. Then here's the tooltip when I'm mousing over it during a mission. Last up, here's the tooltip when I'm aiming that weapon directly at an enemy. Yes, these tooltips are portraying different information. However, it's also a bit frustrating when the information isn't too consistent, or at the very least it's not easy for me to parse the information because I do think there's certain things like accuracy, but a weird chart with the 5 and the 10 representing distance and angle I think representing accuracy, not ideal, not something I'm very good at parsing. Next up, enemy variety. I think this is something that's definitely going to get resolved during early access by the addition of more content. At the start of the game, there are 2 factions, pirates and bugs. Later on, you fight the rogue army, which is much more well equipped and honestly functions very similarly to your own squaddies. And then there's the Menace, the titular thing the game is named after. These are mech biohybrids, and they tend to be pretty darn scary. The thing is, after a faction is introduced, it doesn't get very many more units. Most of the threats are things you will encounter early, and then you continue to encounter them as you play. And this leads into my second point, which is that the difficulty spikes are largely based on encountering new factions. So, the first mission was fairly easy, maybe I just got lucky, maybe it's the first mission it's supposed to be. After that, things settled around what I'd call a medium difficulty. Once the rogue army was introduced, difficulty took a notable jump, especially because the rogue army is usually very effective at targeting vehicles. Like I said earlier, vehicles are pretty OP, so having something that's effective at targeting them does force me to change up my tactics. But where things got really difficult were when the Menace enemies were introduced. Because these things are giga tanky, super scary, do high damage, and there's usually lots of them. So in comparison, going back to fight pirates or aliens felt much easier. In fact, it felt like they were trying to spam large numbers of foes, and I was just mowing them down. So it'd be nice to see some of these existing factions level up in some way with new, scarier foes as you progress through the game. There's a little bit of that, especially for the pirate faction because they're introduced very early, but it didn't feel like there was quite enough there. That said, I would say these are minor complaints, and I expect they're going to be addressed by the end of the early access. After all, the point of early access is to add more content, and that means more enemies. Plus, I'm sure the tooltips will get worked out. And so, last but not least, let's look at the ugly. The first of which is something that bugs me, and I don't know if it bugs anyone else or it's just a me thing, which is that the Menace does a huge amount of morale damage. And yes, I know, each faction has their own thing. Pirates tend to have numbers, high damage, low armor. Bugs tend to be more armored, but a lot of them don't actually do that much damage. The Rogue Army, really strong specials and vehicles, but they're also just kind of dudes, so you can fight them like dudes. And the Menace has morale damage. The problem with this, my tank will get hit by like 3 or 4 things from a random mook, barely scratches the armor. The tank's like, nope, I'm scared. That was scary. My armor almost got scratched. I'm going to run away now. It's very frustrating to have to deal with this morale debuff when the enemies aren't actually damaging my units. Now, if the enemy is damaging my units, I think inflicting a morale penalty, totally fine. Next up, trading of a black market is quite important. In fact, it's one of the most important ways in the game to upgrade your gear. Sure, you can get really cool drops from enemies. I've gotten some awesome things that way, but it's unreliable. If you want a specific thing, you head to the black market and you buy it. This is also how you recruit more squad leaders. This is how you recruit more pilots. And very importantly, this is often how you get more squaddies. If you make a mistake in your mission and your squaddies get wiped out, you'll need to buy more from the black market. But right now, trading is pretty tedious. Maybe I just missed a shortcut to offer entire stacks or offer more stuff or offer random junk. Like, it would be really nice to mark things as junk. But right now, I have to spend quite a bit of time sorting through and going, okay, this thing I need, that thing I don't, putting up enough stuff to equal the value of a thing I'm buying, and then hit accept. Now, last but not least, off-map abilities. This is where the TCRN impetus lends its support and calls in some heavy fire. They tend to do a lot of damage. They are very good at suppressing enemies. The thing is, they also take time to call in. And that's where my frustration comes in, because I find very often when I need it the most, it's not available. And then quite often by the time it goes off, I've already done enough to control the situation and it's no longer as important. Because the other thing is, you call an off-map ability to a fixed location. If the enemies move out of that location, it will miss, meaning you want to spend a lot of time and resources pinning enemies down. Most of the time, that means dealing damage to those enemies, unless you're blasting a literal fortress wall. So an irritating amount of the time, the enemies are half dead already and get finished off by my off-map ability. And so, what are my thoughts and do I recommend Menace? First up, I quite enjoyed my time with the early access. So much so that I think I'm going to be playing again, but this time on challenging difficulty, because after I got some good gear and figured out the tactics, normal did start to become a little bit too easy for me. With that said, it does get a little bit repetitive, and I do think the game is going to improve a lot over the early access. So if you want to jump in now and play, there's a good game here for you to enjoy. But if you want it to be a little bit more polished, a little more content complete, maybe some more variety in the enemies, missions, and factions, wait for the game to get more content, and keep your eye out for the 1.0 release. One question I do have though after playing through the game. Are we the bad guys? I'm seriously getting some Helldivers, Super Earth, we might be the bad guys vibes from this. But remember, even if we are the bad guys, service is always an act of valor. So at least you'll be a valorous villain. But those are my thoughts on Menace after playing about 30 hours of the early access and getting all of the achievements, funnily enough. If you have any thoughts based on your own play experiences, please do let me know down in the comments below. And also, if you have any thoughts on this video format, let me know as well. It's something that I tried for the Neo 3 demo. I quite enjoyed making that video, going over the good, bad, and the ugly there. So I did it again after playing some Menace. And it's something that I do want to iterate on in the future. Right now, the concept I've got is good, bad, ugly, and jazz. Why jazz? I don't know. I just want these videos to have a bit of a chill vibe. That's what I'm going for right now, and who knows, maybe I'll change my mind later. But with that, I'm going to get going for now. So thank you very much for watching to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed. If you're looking for something else to watch, maybe check out my video on the Neo 3 demo. And also, don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. So with that, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.